God understands every tear you've shed, every unspoken plea you've made. He knows the depths of your pain and the cries of your heart. Even when you feel most alone, He is with you. Life can be overwhelming at times, and we all go through moments when our strength fades and our spirits grow weary. In those times, it's vital to remember that you're never truly alone. When the weight of life feels unbearable, it's easy to lose sight of the light, to feel lost and abandoned. But in these dark moments, hold on to this powerful truth. God sees your pain and hears your cries. His purpose will always prevail, and His timing is flawless. Let's trust in His divine plan. In 1 John 3 verse 20, we are reminded that even when our hearts condemn us, God is greater than our hearts and knows everything. So before you give in to despair, remember that God is still on His throne. He is Jehovah Nissi, Jehovah Shalom, the God who is with us. Don't lose hope just yet. God sees your exhaustion. Be patient. Wait for Him. In His perfect timing, you will receive the blessings that have been set aside for you. Today, I want to share some essential biblical teachings about waiting on God. So prepare your hearts and minds for this message. One of the greatest challenges in our walk of faith is practicing patience while waiting for God to answer our prayers. Every believer has experienced those moments of waiting, where it feels like nothing is changing. We begin to wonder why God makes us wait. But let me assure you, His timing is impeccable. He is a God of order and precision. Isaiah 46 verse 10 says, "I declare the end from the beginning, and from ancient times what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please." His plan will unfold in its perfect time. Waiting on God is never easy. Many of us can relate to the feeling of pouring our hearts out in prayer and then waiting in silence, wondering, "God, why is it taking so long? Do you hear me? Have you forgotten about me?" Whether you're praying for healing, a breakthrough, or a change in circumstances, the waiting can feel unbearable. But remember, patience is a virtue. The more you pray, the more it seems like there's no answer. You hold on to your faith, but there's no visible sign, no indication that God is working. In those moments, all you long for is a sign, any sign, from God to let you know He's there. Yet, sometimes, the only response is silence. What is God doing during these quiet times? Why does He seem so still? Think of Joseph's story in Genesis. Joseph endured years of betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment, yet through it all, God was with him, orchestrating every detail. In Genesis 50 verse 20, Joseph tells his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Like Joseph, you might feel stuck in a pit, waiting for deliverance. But just because God is silent doesn't mean He's absent. Even in the waiting, God is at work behind the scenes, arranging everything for your good. God is constantly moving, even when we can't see it. His love for you is immense, and His plans for you are wonderful. He desires to bless you, to see you flourish. So today, we'll dive into some key principles about waiting on God, opening our hearts and minds to embrace these biblical truths. First, remember, God's delays are not His denials. We live in a world that craves immediate results, where waiting is often seen as a waste of time. In our fast-paced culture, waiting can trigger anxiety and doubt. We may question if something is wrong because waiting feels like we're missing opportunities. It's natural to feel uneasy during this time of uncertainty, especially when the outcome is unknown. Doubt creeps in, and the temptation to take matters into our own hands grows stronger. But that's when we need to be careful. The Bible warns us that trying to control things ourselves, outside of God's timing, can lead to complications. If you're in a season of waiting, you might be feeling desperate. Maybe you've prayed, trusted, And yet, nothing has changed. Doubt begins to whisper, "What if?" And soon, you're tempted to give up on God because He hasn't met your expectations. But here's the challenge I want to present to you. How long will you wait before giving up on God? How much time will you give Him before you walk away because He hasn't moved on your timeline? Remember, God works on His schedule, not ours. In the waiting, resist the urge to take control. Trust in God's perfect timing, even when it feels like time is running out. Hold on to your faith and hope, knowing that God is always at work, even when we can't see it. Consider the story of Lazarus in John 11. Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus that their brother Lazarus was ill, expecting Jesus to come and heal him. But Jesus delayed his visit, and Lazarus died. When Jesus finally arrived, Lazarus had been in the grave for 4 days. Mary and Martha were heartbroken, questioning why Jesus hadn't come sooner. But Jesus demonstrated that God's delays are not His denials. He performed a miraculous resurrection, showing His power over death itself. Isaiah 55 verses 8-9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." God's perspective is far greater than ours. He sees the bigger picture and knows what's best for us. When we encounter delays, let's not lose heart. Instead, let's place our trust in God's wisdom and timing. God's delays aren't rejections. They are opportunities for us to strengthen our faith and witness His miraculous power in action. There will be times in life when it feels like God is postponing His response to our prayers. We may pray fervently for healing, for provision, for breakthroughs, but it feels like God is silent opportunities for more significant miracles, for deeper faith, and for His glory to be revealed. Just as Jesus delayed His visit to Lazarus to showcase His power over death, God's delays in our lives often set the stage for something extraordinary. Principle 2. Patience is a virtue. In a world that prioritizes speed and instant gratification, patience can seem like a forgotten quality. We live in an age of fast food, high-speed internet, and immediate results. We often want things to unfold according to our timeline and our plans. However, the truth is that God's timing rarely aligns with our expectations. Patience is not merely waiting. It's about resilience, persistence, and faith. It's about holding on to hope when everything around us looks bleak, and surrendering our desires to God's perfect plan. James 5 verses 7-8 tells us, "Be patient, therefore, brothers and sisters, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it, until it receives the early and the late rains. You too be patient. Strengthen your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is near." Just as the farmer patiently waits for the harvest, we too are called to wait patiently for God's promises to be fulfilled. Patience isn't passive. It's an active choice to trust in God's faithfulness, even when our circumstances seem uncertain. Let's be honest, patience is tough. It's challenging to wait when our prayers seem unanswered, when obstacles persist, and when time feels like it's slipping away. Doubts creep in, and the temptation to take control grows stronger. But rushing ahead of God's timing only leads to frustration and disappointment. Instead, let us embrace patience as a virtue, knowing that it fosters resilience and shapes our character. Romans 5 verses 3-4 reminds us that patience produces perseverance, character, and hope. Trust in God's perfect timing, knowing that He is orchestrating everything for our good, as stated in Romans 8 verse 28. Remember, the season of waiting is not a waste. It's a time of growth, refinement, and preparation for the blessings God has in store for us. In the midst of waiting, let us cultivate patience, knowing that God is faithful and His promises will be fulfilled in His time. Principle 3. Have faith in God's impeccable timing. The scriptures encourage us to let patience have its perfect work. Patience is not a passive trait. It is developed in the waiting periods of life. You may not see visible changes, but rest assured that significant transformations are happening beneath the surface. Patience strengthens your spiritual muscles, helping you grow, evolve, and become more resilient. So don't underestimate the periods of waiting, and don't lose heart if things aren't progressing as quickly as you'd like. The longer it takes, the greater the blessings God has in store for you. We all have dreams we long to see fulfilled, challenges we hope will be resolved, and desires for the right person or opportunity. When the wait seems longer than expected, it's easy to feel discouraged and restless, asking, when will it finally happen? However, sometimes the delay isn't because God is inactive, but because we're not yet ready for what He has planned. You may feel prepared for what you're praying for, but if you could glimpse God's perspective, you'd understand that you're not fully equipped to handle it yet. You need time to grow and gain the necessary experience. Consider the story of Abraham and Sarah in Genesis 21. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, yet he was 100 years old, and Sarah was 90 when their son Isaac, the fulfillment of God's promise, was born. Imagine waiting nearly 100 years for a promise to be fulfilled. But in His perfect timing, God delivered. In our lives, we often find ourselves waiting for God's intervention, praying for breakthroughs, healing, provision, or reconciliation. Yet, it seems as though God's timing is different from ours. We become impatient, anxious, and sometimes doubtful, wondering if God hears our prayers or if He will act on our behalf. The waiting period is a time of preparation, refinement, and growth, much like how Abraham and Sarah faced obstacles and challenges while waiting for God's promise to come to pass. God used that time to mold them into vessels ready for His blessings. So, dear friends, let's anchor our hearts in trust. Believe that God is true to His word, that He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail according to His flawless plan. Let's wait with anticipation, knowing that at the right moment, God will fulfill what He has promised. As we journey through seasons of waiting, let's adopt a mindset of gratitude, praise, and worship, acknowledging God's goodness, His sovereignty, and His unwavering love. Proverbs 3 verses 5-6 provides a profound truth. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. This verse encourages us to release our timelines, desires, and understanding to God. It invites us to place our absolute trust in His wisdom, sovereignty, and faithfulness. Trusting in God's perfect timing requires faith, a faith that clings to God's promises even when the situation looks grim, a faith that persists in prayer despite delayed answers, and a faith that recognizes that God's ways and timing are far superior to ours. His timing is always perfect. Principle 4. Discover tranquility in God's timing. Psalm 46 verse 10 urges us, "Be still, and know that I am God." This verse emphasizes the importance of calming our hearts and minds, pausing amidst life's chaos to acknowledge God's presence and sovereignty. In stillness, we find peace, a peace that transcends human understanding and shields our hearts from fear and doubt. Discovering tranquility in God's timing involves appreciating the journey of waiting. Instead of viewing waiting as stagnation or frustration, we can see it as an opportunity for growth, reflection, and deeper connection with God. Finding peace in God's timing requires us to relinquish control and trust wholeheartedly in His plan. It means letting go of our need to control outcomes and embracing the certainty that God's timing is impeccable, even when it doesn't align with our expectations. Philippians 4 verses 6-7 offers this comforting advice. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. True peace doesn't come from having all the answers or controlling every situation. It comes from surrendering our worries and concerns to God and resting in His sovereignty. In a world filled with uncertainty and chaos, finding peace in God's timing can be challenging. We may be tempted to worry, doubt, or take matters into our own hands. But true peace is found in surrendering our fears and anxieties to God and trusting that He is working all things for our good. As we wait with patience and anticipation, our faith is strengthened, and our God is aware of every tear you've shed and every unspoken plea you've made. He understands the depth of your pain and the silent cries of your heart. Even when you feel most alone, He is with you. Life can present overwhelming challenges, and we all face moments where our strength wanes and our spirits feel drained. Yet, in these moments, it is crucial to remember that you are not alone. Though the weight of your burdens may seem unbearable and the path ahead unclear, God is always near, guiding you through even the darkest times. Remember that God's purpose will always prevail, and His timing is never flawed. In moments when doubt creeps in, when it feels like your prayers are going unanswered, trust that God is still at work. As it says in 1 John 3 verse 20, even when our hearts condemn us, God is greater than our hearts and knows everything. Take solace in knowing that God is still on His throne, watching over you, working in ways beyond your understanding. He is Jehovah Nissi, Jehovah Shalom, and the God who is always with you. God sees your exhaustion and understands the weariness of your soul. Be patient, wait on Him, and at the appointed time, you will receive the blessings He has prepared for you. Today I want to share some key biblical teachings on waiting for God. So open your heart and mind as we explore these principles together. Principle 1. God's delays are not denials. In a world that values speed and immediate outcomes, waiting can feel like wasted time. But God's timing is perfect, and His delays are often a setup for greater things to come. Just as Jesus delayed His visit to Lazarus to reveal His power over death, God's delays in our lives often create opportunities for deeper faith, greater miracles, and the unveiling of His glory. In moments of waiting, trust that God is preparing something extraordinary. Principle 2. Patience is a virtue. We live in a fast-paced world that prizes immediate results, making patience seem like a forgotten virtue. But patience is more than just waiting. It is resilience, persistence, and trust in God's flawless plan. James 5 verses 7 to 8 encourages us to be patient, like a farmer who waits for the harvest. Patience is an active choice to trust in God's faithfulness, even when life feels uncertain and our prayers seem unanswered. Romans 5 verses 3 to 4 reminds us that patience produces perseverance, character, and hope. Trust in God's perfect timing, knowing that He is working behind the scenes for your good. Principle 3. Have faith in God's impeccable timing. Faith in God's timing is crucial. While you may not see immediate changes, significant transformation is happening beneath the surface. Like a farmer waiting for the harvest, patience strengthens your spiritual muscles, preparing you for the blessings ahead. As we wait, trust that God is working, even when it feels like nothing is moving. Remember that the longer it takes, the greater the blessings God has in store. Trust in His timing, just as Abraham and Sarah did when they waited for the fulfillment of God's promise in Genesis 21. Principle 4. Discover tranquility in God's timing. Psalm 46 verse 10 tells us to be still and know that I am God. In the stillness of waiting, we can find peace. Let go of the need to control the outcome and trust in God's timing. Philippians 4 verses 6 to 7 reminds us to not be anxious, but to present our requests to God, and His peace will guard our hearts and minds. When we surrender our fears and anxieties to God, we discover a peace that transcends understanding, knowing that He is in control. Principle 5. Have faith in God's supreme rule. Proverbs 19 verse 21 teaches that though we may have many plans, it is God's purpose that will prevail. Trusting in God's supreme rule means yielding our desires and plans to His greater wisdom. Psalm 103 verse 19 reminds us that the Lord has established His throne in heaven, and His kingdom rules over all. Even when things feel uncertain, God is in control. His plans are grander, His timing is impeccable, and His purpose will always triumph. Dear friends, as you navigate this season of waiting, take comfort in knowing that God is orchestrating everything for your benefit. In the quiet moments, listen to His voice and find peace in His presence. He sees your pain, hears your cries, and is preparing you for something greater. Trust in Him, for His love is unfailing, and His promises are true. If this message has touched your heart, express your affirmation by typing, "God is always with me," in the comment section below. I proclaim that all the blessings of this prayer are now bestowed upon you in the name of Jesus. Thank you for joining me today. If this video resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your loved ones, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more inspirational content. Remember, your pain will not last forever, and your cries will not go unheard. Trust in God's plan, for He is preparing a future filled with hope, joy, and love. God sees your pain, and He hears your cry. Hold on, for His promises are always faithful.